Welcome back to the Green Room, the space where real talk meets reflection. I'm your host, Chris, and today we're going to be diving into something that I think is going to hit a little different when you really sit with it. It's the idea that impact matters more than intent. And you're going to see what I mean. Now, let's start the conversation with the phrase, but I didn't mean it like that. Well, it got your attention there, didn't it? You definitely heard that phrase before. You might have been the one that said it. I didn't mean it like that. It's almost instinct at this point when something we say or do lands wrong. And that's our first line of defense. But here's what we really need to, but rarely admit: good intentions don't erase bad impact. You may have not meant to offend, hurt, or disrespect someone, but if the impact of your words or actions caused harm, that's the reality that person has to live with. Intent explains what was in your heart, but impact reveals what actually happened. And those two things don't always mean the same thing. Let's make it real. So when you think about that joke you heard someone say that crosses the line, maybe about race, gender, body image, or mental health, whether they're called out, the response is always the same. Relax, I was just kidding, is what's always said. But the statement shifts responsibility. It centers the comfort of the person who caused the harm, not the one who felt it. And what we forget is humor doesn't cancel impact. Intent doesn't neutralize harm. It just means the person didn't care enough to consider it first. And that's why listening to how people receive us matters just as much as what we meant. Now, some might even say, whoa, they're too sensitive, but that's not the point here. The point is knowing your audience, knowing the person you are conversating with, knowing that you may have meant no harm, but the feelings of that individual that you caused harm to is just as valid as your joke. And let's be honest, the world we live in, we're going to call it the reaction culture for the day. We live in a culture that reacts faster than it reflects. You can post something on social media and within minutes, you could be viral. Maybe your caption didn't come out how you meant it, or a quote got taken out of context. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Once your message leaves your mouth or your timeline, you don't control how it lands. Intent might start the conversation, but impact decides how it spreads. I think I'm going to say that one more time so you in the back can hear this. Intent might start the conversation, but the impact decides how it spreads. And the danger is that many of us stops at I meant well as if that's enough. The brutal truth is, it's not. We have to take that extra step to understand how the words ripple out, how they make people feel, how they shift energy in the room. And that's the difference between self-aware and being self-centered. Now, we're going to talk about emotional maturity and then the gap that exists today. Emotional maturity isn't about never getting it wrong. It's about being able to own when you do it, saying, that wasn't my intent. But I can see how that could have hurt you. Let's talk about it. Having just that realization right there can change the whole conversation into a learning experience. It's about listening without defending. You don't have to agree with how someone feels to validate that they feel it. And here's a deeper layer. Sometimes the people who loves us most are the ones who we unintentionally hurt. I can be honest and say my intent, if I say something towards my wife without realizing the impact of those words, can cause more harm. Fellas, if your girlfriend, wife, significant other ask you, does this dress make me look fat? What's your response? Do you lie just to appease them? Do you tell the truth? Which should always be the answer. Let me say that. Even if the truth is going to hurt somebody's feelings, you can still say that tactfully. You can still say that with some grace. But just because we assume our intent, our history with them, or our tone covers everything, but the individual still deserves our empathy, not our excuses. Like I said, if your intent is love, your response after the harm should still look like love. Just like an example I gave you. If you are asked a question that you think is going to hurt their feelings, graciously, lovingly, intentfully remember impact. Now, that brings us into leadership, because this doesn't just imply in conversations, this implies how we treat the people who follow us, work with us, or even look up to us. Because when you lead, whether that's in your job, your family, your teams, or a platform, your impact does multiply. People don't just hear what you say, they feel what you represent. You might intend to push your team to greatness, but if your tone crushes the morality of that team, your impact becomes discouragement, not motivation. In today's athletics, we're seeing coaches getting fired left and right. We're seeing athletic directors getting fired left and right. We're seeing captains of teams no longer be affiliated with that team anymore. There is a reason. How do you lead in those moments? How do you encourage and not discourage? How do you boost up morality, not tear it down? You might intend to be real or honest, but if your words humiliate somebody in public, your impact becomes shame, not growth. There's this phrase that we tear them down so we can build them up. That's not necessarily true. Why aren't we building them up from where they are? And leadership intent is private, but impact is public. And that's why self-awareness is the most underrated leadership skill. We have people out here dying of senseless violence, not thinking about the families of these individuals. We have people crazy with power, not realizing the true impact of their policies, or some might even say the lack of policies. We have carelessness happening every single day. Everyone wants to make a difference. Everyone wants to forget the past. Everyone wants to forget that past incident. But we need to address the impact of that incident. And once you address that, things turn around once we hear the words, I'm sorry. Sometimes an apology is all that we need. Now, Of course, here in the green room, I'm going to take this to a biblical sense. Faith teaches us that God sees the heart. Now that's intent. But scripture also tells us that faith without works is dead. And that's impact. Because James 2:17 reminds us that your belief, your intent means nothing without action that reflects it. If your heart is kind, your words should reflect kindness. If your heart seeks peace, your behavior should bring peace. The Bible also says in Matthew 12:36, for every idle word men shall speak, they shall give an account. That means intent might be invisible to others, but your impact is still accountable to God. Your intentions start in private, but your impact lives in public. And both matters in the kingdom. Now, here's why this topic makes people defensive. Because when we hear impact over intent, it feels like someone is saying that our heart doesn't matter. And that's so far from the truth, y'all. Your intent still definitely matters, but intent alone isn't enough to protect someone from the damage of your actions and what they have caused. And the real maturity here is holding both truths. You didn't mean harm, but harm still happened. When we can hold both, when we can have grace and growth, that's where the healing begins. Not improving your heart, but repairing your impact. Realizing that it's not about you individually, it's about the collective and how do we grow in maturity. Now, so here's going to be the green room challenge for this week. Before you speak, post, or respond to something, check what the reactions are going to be. Check the ripple. What I'm saying is ask yourself, how could this make someone feel? What is the real impact of what I'm about to say? Am I trying to connect or am I just trying to correct? Because every word, every post, and every tone, it all creates ripples. You can't always predict the wave, but you can choose to move with more care. And that's what impact awareness looks like. Intentional empathy, not censorship, not pleasing people, just awareness. And I do believe that's doable. There's a phrase that at least I grew up on, and I'm sure some of you listeners have. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never. That's not true. What we're seeing in today's age, words are doing more damage that some people will rather have a broken bone. Words are hurting people's heart, people's mind. And at the end of the day, your intent starts the story, but your impact is what people remember. When people think of you, they'll remember how your words made them feel, how your presence shifted a room, how your actions backed up your message. So maybe this week isn't about defending your heart, it's about refining your delivery. Because your character shows up not just in what you mean, but in how you make people feel. I've said over and over, intent is what you think. Impact is what you leave behind. One defines your motive, the other defines your legacy. As always, if this episode challenged you, please share it with someone who's growing too. And make sure you follow the Green Room on Spotify, YouTube for This is where we have honest conversations on growth, grace, and the human experience. But until next time, lead with love, but listen for impact. Peace.